Right, in this short video I'm just going to show you how I make my moulds for casting my resin blanks. It's a very simple, cheap way to make mould to cast the resin blanks in. I don't know how long it will last. I mean, I've used it 4 times so far. The last lot I did some glitter in it and it dropped to the bottom, but that'll come out with the next casting that I do. Hopefully it'll stick to the resin and come out. I took them out a little bit too early really, and the resin hadn't quite gone off all the way around. It was still quite sticky on the outside. I find that the resin tends to stay a bit sticky on the outside for days afterwards, but the inside's generally pretty good. So the way I go about making these moulds, originally I made this mould, and I forgot that the rubber would shrink a little bit after you take it off the mould as it sets properly, and it's actually just a few millimeters too short for these slimline blanks. But I can get away with using one of these blanks with one of the blanks that are the right size. There's just that little bit of adjustment in the slimline kit that you can get away with it. So I use that other mould there, as if I got any resin left over after pouring this one, I use it up in that mould. So to make that, all I did was I cut some pieces of wood the size of the blank, were just slightly bigger than the size of the blank. These are probably 5mm longer than. Fresh batteries in the camera, and as I was saying, you need to cut just pieces of wood that are just a bit bigger. These are about 5mm bigger than the finished blank size, than the blank you're going to be making with them. So obviously if you're making a bigger, fatter pen, or one that needs longer blanks, use longer pieces of wood. So you make these pieces of wood so the same size or bigger than, just a bit bigger than the blanks you're going to be making. Right, and in this case I've just used a bit of chipboard. It's quite a dense chipboard, this one. It makes a change for nowadays. It's usually like straw stuck together nowadays, but it's a nice bit of chipboard. And I just stuck them on there. I sprayed the chipboard with some accelerator, and then put a bit of glue on the back of the piece of wood and just stuck it down with super glue. Super glue goes off almost immediately with the accelerator on the chipboard. And I just spaced them out enough so that I can get the brush in there to put on the liquid latex rubber. It's available pretty cheaply off the internet. I've made both these moulds so far out of this one, and I've only used half of it, so there's enough in there for 2 more moulds. Right, so I also use in that a bit of liquid latex emulsion thickener, and you can get that on the internet as well. I mean, I get mine off of eBay or Amazon, and I mix a bit of that in with it just to give it a bit more thickness, so that it doesn't run off. Everything. As you can see, that's quite thick in there. Hopefully you can see that. It's quite thick and gloopy now. And then what you do, you just paint it over everything. Make sure you fill all the gaps and cracks and nooks and nannies. Oh, by the way, I sanded all these blocks as well before I used them. I sanded the top of the chipboard as well, just to give it a nice smooth surface. Whatever you do, don't wax the mould first, because obviously this is water based, this rubber solution, and it will just pool. You won't get a nice even coat for the first coat. And make sure you do all the ends as well. I've used this former once before already. The one for the smaller one is on the back of this. So I just completely cover that. Make sure you don't get too much build up anywhere, because what I've noticed with this is that the surface will set and you'll still have a bit of gooey emulsion underneath that set surface. I mean, this is the most important coat. The first few coats are the most important, because they're going to give you the nice smooth surfaces that you need. So just make sure you get a nice even coat over the whole of the mould, and do the ends as well. Make sure you sand the ends, because you want a nice smooth surface, because you've got to get this off afterwards. And obviously the rougher the surface, the more likely that the latex is going to key to it, and you don't want that, because you've got to be able to peel it off afterwards. So just go on and I'll finish this. What I've been doing, I've got a small heater in my workshop here. I've just been putting it in front of that, up on a block of wood or something. It's not close enough for it to catch fire. So I've been managing to get 5 or 6 coats on a day. It's going to take a few days, but it's just a nice, cheap, easy way of doing it, really, when cash isn't abundant. But in my case it isn't. So just keep on with that. Use a nice soft brush so that it doesn't pull lines through it. Get a nice coat. Alright, so that's the first coat. Make sure you get all the corners covered. Obviously with the thickener it does help a lot, because you don't end up having to put so many coats on. I mean, if I hadn't used the thickener here, I would probably only have, I don't know, half the amount of latex on these, and it would tend to run off the corners. But having a thickener in it just helps to keep it all in place nicely. Oops, missed a bit. So altogether, I reckon on this mould that I've made here, on this second mould that I made, I probably put easily 15 coats on that, 15 to 20 coats on that. So obviously you need a certain amount on there to give it a certain amount of rigidity, so that when you pour the resin in there, it doesn't just do that. I don't know whether you see that. So that it doesn't just push it apart with the weight of the resin. So I mean, this is quite rigid, this one. This one I put even more on this one. This is even more rigid than that one. But I found I didn't need quite so much, really. This is perfectly adequate for pouring the resin into. It doesn't push it apart, and the blanks come out. This one with the glitter on, the glitter that's been left in the bottom, it's sunk I didn't expect it to. I thought the resin would be viscous enough for it to remain suspended, but most of it sank to the bottom. But that's one of the blanks that I made using this, and it's pretty square still. There's no bulges or anything. It's come out of there. It's come out of there like that, and they come out easily because obviously the latex stretches, and you can just pull them out. So that's how I go about it. And like I say, I'll have 15 to 20 coats on there. I just keep checking the edge to make sure I'm getting the thickness that I want, and you just have to use your judgment really, whether you think it's going to be solid enough to support the weight of the resin without it pushing apart. Well, like I say, there's 15, maybe 15, 20 coats on here, and eventually I decided that that was enough. There's probably 25 coats on this one. Although I did thicken up the latex even more on the last few coats. But like I say, you've got to make sure you don't have too much build up, because the latex will still stay gooey under the dry layer. If you do, it won't be able to dry out because it will be sealed over the top. Like I say, this liquid latex rubber, and this is from a company called Trilon. Don't know where they are, I'm sure. In Northamptonshire, but I bought it off of Amazon, I think. It could have been eBay, but it might have been Amazon. And that's it really. I'll show you when this one's finished. I'll go through the process of pulling it off the mould. Okay, see you then. Right, so there's 15 coats of rubber on this now. So peel it off. Just got to free it up from the sides where you might have painted over the edge a little bit. It soaks into the side a little bit because it's quite an open texture on the edge of chipboard. So just pull it away gently from the sides. Just makes it easier to pull off the mould. You can see the underneath there, it's the first mould I made, where the even though these were slightly longer than the tubes, by the time I'd taken the mould off and it had dried out properly, they were just slightly shorter than the tubes. It pulls off quite easily. As you can see. Oops. That one, previous one, stuck a little bit. Okay, so you can see the mould's completely clean of it. It's pulled off quite clean. But I did sand this all nice to a nice fine finish before I started to paint it. As you can see now, we've got the mould, one damaged one, but I'm not too worried about that. I can still pour I can still pour 7. And that's it. Over the next couple of days that will go a bit harder, and it'll give a bit more support. But at the moment it's well strong enough to support the weight of the resin that's poured into it. I say, as it dries out, it'll darken more in colour and it will be a bit more rigid. So, I mean, it's not bad at all. And it's only cost me like, I don't know, probably £1's worth of latex there, a couple of odd scraps of wood from around the workshop, and a paintbrush, and that's it. And I just use that. When I come to pour a resin mould, when I come to pour the resin, I'll show you how I do it. So I use this latex mould. This is the one I made previously. What I've done, I've just mixed up some acrylic resin. It's a glass clear acrylic resin I'm just playing with at the moment. And I just got these colours. They're nail varnish colour, acrylic nail varnish colouring. And I mixed up a bit of blue, a bit of yellow, and a bit of a, I don't know, pinky colour into these pots. They seem to be still quite translucent, which is the effect I'm trying to get with this glass clear resin. I'm trying to get so that I can put colour into it, but it can still have a depth to it. So I've mixed those up. I'll just take the sticks out. These have been resting for a few minutes just to let a few air bubbles rise to the top where I mixed it up. But I haven't got a pressure pot, so I won't be able to put them in a vacuum pot, rather, sorry, so that the bubbles will come out of it. But the last lot that I poured of these, I didn't have a single bubble left in them. So let's get a just get a nail there ready. So what I do, I pour a little bit of the blue in there, a little bit of the pink, and a little bit of the yellow, a bit more blue, just to get a nice mix of the colours, a bit more pink, a bit more yellow. I find if I pour quite slowly, with quite a fine drizzle, the air bubbles tend to come out anyway. There's a bit more blue there, a bit more pink, a bit more yellow. I mean, obviously this is like going to be the middle of the blank, this bit now, because the mould's half full. Doesn't matter if you spill a little bit on the edge of the rubber, it will come off. A bit more blue, a bit pink. I'm actually going to stir these up a little bit with the nail. A little yellow there, a little bit more blue. It's quite interesting to find out how these come out with these nail varnish colouring. It's certainly a lot cheaper than resin colouring. And a little bit more yellow there. So I'll do that now with all the others, or until I run out of resin, and then I'll get back to you. That's what I've done. I've poured those. I've just poured different colours in like layers, and next to each other. And then I just take the nail and I just go in like a couple of circles down to the bottom, couple of circles, drag it up to the top, just to mix the colours up a little bit. And I have to let those set now for 24 hours, possibly longer because it's a bit cold out here in my workshop, and see how they come out, and I'll keep you informed. So just finishing up on this latex mould that I made, and I showed you how I put the resin into these. They've had 18 hours or so to go off, and you see the rubber mould just pulls away from it. They're flexible enough to get right down. They come out quite easily. I think these blanks are going to look quite good when they're turned down. I'll have to add a little bit to the end of this video when I make one. They just pull out really easily. The resin doesn't affect this latex rubber. I've used polyester resin in here as well, and that was fine. That didn't affect it either. So it's pretty durable. I say pretty cheap. Just a liquid latex rubber, a bit of thickener, and and just a former, you know, pretty cheap to make really, and you get 4 pens out of each mould, as long as you don't break the blank when you're turning it. So now I've got 2, so I can make 8 at a time if I want to, but I just use that one for any excess resin that I've got left over after I finish pouring the one mould really. I don't want to make too many exactly the same. Well, they're not exactly the same, these guys are, they're all going to be slightly different. That's just an experiment, that one. Anyway, I've been using the acrylic nail varnish colouring in them just to see how it comes out. Okay then, so that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.